Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by Chase Freedom Unlimited, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Crown Royal, and the 2020 Breeders' Cup World Championships.
Good morning and welcome to week 8. This is a special Halloween hangover edition of Fantasy Football Live. I'm Liz Loza, and joining me in our virtual studio is Andy Behrens from Chicago, Matt Harmon from Los Angeles, Tank Williams from San Francisco, and betting analyst Minty Betts live from Las Vegas. All right, guys, we have to talk about everybody's costumes. Andy, what's up with the rec specs?
Oh, well, anytime you can dress as your fantasy kicker, you got to do it. I'm out here, Rodrigo Blankenship. I did not realize when I ordered these rec specs that I was getting somebody's old prescription, so this could give me like a blinding migraine by the end. But hey, I'm gonna tough it out.
Well, if you need some Advil, you wouldn't be the first kicker this season to have a headache. All right, Matt, let's talk about you. What's this whole lumberjack vibe? You got a very, very East Side hipster. I'm digging it. I don't know what it has to do with football, but I love it.
Oh, nothing to do with football, but you know, in honor of a show coming back that literally no one asked for, I am Lumberjack Dexter coming back out of the woods, returning for this new season. I've got my plastic wrap, I've got my gloves, I've got my drill. I'm ready to get back in action, you know, taking justice into my own hands. Just like you're taking your fantasy decisions into your own hands. So see, it all comes right back around.
We are all looking forward to you murdering your picks this week, that's for sure. I couldn't, that was horrible. Tank, look at you, sweetness. You are always my favorite, especially in this costume.
Well, what's happening, Lizzie? Now, I know it's been really bad for the Chicago Bears. They've been having to deal with all this David Montgomery frustration for the past, I don't know how many years. It's been so bad that they already forgot about Matt Forte and that they actually had a good running back since I played. So I just wanted to give y'all Bears fans just a little something to think about before the Saints dust y'all later today.
Tank, I will always give you the ball at the goal line. No question about it.
Hey.
Minty.
Sweetness love
my
that girl.
Minty, my division rival here. Look at us.
Yes.
Being pit against each other. How fitting. Who could you possibly be in that costume?
You know, just think back to week 1. Who could I possibly be? It was a cold day and it's warm underneath this shield and hat. I mean, my goodness. I know how Andy Reid feels now.
Well, at least you're wearing a shield. My Gruden doesn't deal with the mess. He's got the money for the fines and the bodies for the Rona. No worries about it. So that is our Halloween getup for this week. Don't forget, we are here to not just dress up and entertain you, but also to help you get those lineups set. So send your roster questions on Twitter at Yahoo Fantasy using the AskFFL hashtag, or drop a question in the chat and we'll try to answer as many as we can on the show. Plus, our own Scott Pianowski is responding to questions live on Twitter as we speak, so fire away. Pianowski has got you. Let's get to the injury report for week 8. Some highly rostered players that we know are out today include Saints receiver Michael Thomas and Packers running back Aaron Jones. Cincinnati's Joe Mixon will miss his second straight game, as will Eagles running back Miles Sanders. A look at the latest from the actives and inactives list this morning. All right, Dalvin Cook is set to return for the Vikings coming off the bye week. And NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reports he's expected to get a full workload, so that's good news. Not good news. Jamison Crowder is inactive today for the Jets matchup with Kansas City. He'll miss his second straight game with a groin injury. Bears wideout Allen Robinson did not practice this week while in the league's concussion protocol, but he has been cleared to return and will suit up against the Saints. Finally, in the late games, here's a head scratcher. Chris Carson is still listed as questionable, and he's going to be a true game time decision for Seattle. They're going to test him pregame, but Adam Schefter reports that he is 50-50 to play against San Francisco. So not very illuminating. I'm sure we'll talk about Seattle's backfield a lot during this show. We'll kick things off with our fantasy freebies for this week. These are players who are not widely started in Yahoo leagues, but could do some damage for fantasy managers. Andy, who's up first?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with Rashard Higgins. He was a popular waiver ad this week, and you did not add him just as like a decoration for your fantasy bench. You've got to get him in your roster. Coming off a game in which he was targeted 6 times, caught them all, a couple of highlight grabs in there, over 100 yards. He's had some really nice moments in the past with Baker Mayfield. I think he basically steps into all those vacated Odell Beckham targets. I think there's a great spot for him, too, against Vegas. Both of these pass defenses in this game have been poor on the season. Both rank among the bottom 5 in the league. So this is a great spot for Higgins. Good shot at finding the end zone here.
I love Hollywood this week. I'm going to talk about a Jets player we discussed in the inactives portion of the show already that Jamison Crowder isn't in, but LaMichael Pirine could do some damage. I know the game script against Kansas City doesn't really bode well for a running back, but he does have some receiving chops. In fact, last week he was on the field for 70% of the snaps. He did receive the same number of totes as Frank Gore, but he drew 3 targets to Gore's 0. Also, Frank Gore dealing with a hand injury, so I think Pirine does have an opportunity to be used as a desperation flex, and let's be honest, the running back landscape this week is scorched earth. Kansas City has shown an ability to be leaky versus the run. They're allowing 4.9 yards per carry to opposing runners, so go ahead and take a look at Pirine. Andy, your last guy?
Yeah, my last guy is going to be a little bit deeper, and this is, look, you're in a 16-team league, maybe deeper than that. I'm looking at Darnell Mooney. At some point, this guy is going to have a breakout game because he passes the eye test every week. If you were watching the Monday Nighter last week, you saw him cook Jalen Ramsey. Kid's good. He's actually seen 26 targets over the last 4 weeks, so volume is beginning to come his way. I felt a little bit better about this pick when I didn't think Allen Robinson was going to play. Allen Robinson is back in the mix here, but still, he's facing a New Orleans defense that has been pretty generous to opposing passers, to opposing wideouts. They've given up 6 70-plus yard performances to opposing wide receivers so far, and I think Mooney can join that club. He won't need many targets in this one to have a chance at a splash play.
Always love a speed element in Chicago, something very needed. Thank you, Andy. Time now for Fantasy Football Weapons presented by Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you can build the legend of a Viking Raider. This new game features dual-wielding combat by pairing 2 different weapons together to take on enemies. So in that spirit, we are selecting fantasy combinations, or stacks, and the visceral Viking weapons they represent from Assassin's Creed. Matt, you're the video game guy. Take it away.
I mean, I'm reaching back to my college roots here to talk to you about Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen, our first stack here. Justin Herbert will be playing the part of the spear here, whereas Keenan Allen is going to be our shield. Now, historians would tell us, the great archaeologists would tell us that Herbert, the spear, is, quote, basic in its design. Yeah, I would say that Herbert coming into the NFL, everyone's like, oh, it's just another tall statue quarterback with bad college production. Give me a break, another basic bust. Not at all. Herbert has been unbelievable, showing star-level qualities with an 8-to-1 touchdown-to-interception ratio on deep passes and a 12.3 air yards per attempt when under pressure. Those 2 traits are the mark of a franchise quarterback. But here's the deal, folks. Yes, Herbert has been throwing touchdowns to all bunch of goofballs down the Chargers depth chart. But today, this is when he's going to take that shield because, look, you don't go into battle with just a spear. You got to have that shield. Without the shield, you're done. You're a sitting duck back there. And Keenan Allen is a perfect shield for Justin Herbert, as he is one of just 2 players this year with a 30% target share. Him and DeAndre Hopkins, they're those stud receivers. So love this stat. Keenan Allen against the Broncos is still just $22 in Yahoo Daily Fantasy. What are we doing here, folks? Give me a break. Love this stack this week. Let's move on to our next stack, and we're going down to Tennessee to talk about Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown. Now, Ryan Tannehill is going to be our bearded axe. A.J. Brown will be our hammer. And the bearded axe, again, let's pull up the history books here. Let's do a little lesson down memory lane. The bearded axe was efficiently used in combat to pull a weapon or a shield from an enemy's grip. I mean, does that not sound like Ryan Tannehill's elite ability on play action to give you those fakes, to pull the ball away from Derrick Henry and throw downfield passes? I'd say so. Tannehill's 11.2 yards per attempt on play action is the highest mark in the NFL. But here's the deal, folks. Yes, you want your bearded axe, of course, but any battle veteran, any Viking historian would tell you that when you see a guy coming down the field, coming across the battlefield, or in this case, the football field, rocking that hammer, you know it's serious business. You know it's probably over. You know you're probably banged. That is how opponents feel when they see A.J. Brown, who is the difference maker, the hammer of this Tennessee Titans passing game. The guy has scored 4 touchdowns and averaged over 16 yards per catch since he returned from an early season injury, and he's taken Tannehill's fantasy scoring to new heights. He's taken the entire offense to new heights. So love that stack against a Bengals defense that, I mean, come on, the Bengals defense. What are we doing here? They'll be just fine dropping that hammer, this Tennessee Titans offense against this Bengals defense. So be sure to check out Assassin's Creed Valhalla, coming out November 10th on Xbox Series X, S, and Xbox One.
Love it when a serial killer breaks down his favorite weapons. We are going to start over-unders here, right here in Chicago, windy, chilly Chicago. Going to talk about Drew Brees. He's visiting town, 259.5 passing yards. I'll start us off here. Look, I know he's done this 4 times in his last 5 games. He's Drew Brees. He's a future Hall of Famer and all that. This is a difficult matchup for him against the Bears defense. They rank number 8 overall against the pass. They give up only 6.6 yards per attempt on the season. You look at the receiving core, no Thomas, no Sanders, no Callaway. Going to be tough sledding for Drew Brees in this one. I am going to take the under on this number. Andy Reid, what say you?
You know what? I actually have to disagree. I like the over here. Like you said, he's exceeded 260 in 4 games this season, and the Bears passing defense is allowing about 222 yards per game, but I think Drew will find weapons down the field even without Thomas and Sanders, so give me the over.
All right, sweetness, come on. You got to go with the Bears here.
Man, I got to go under. Like, I wanted to go over so bad, too, because I remember that Teddy Bridgewater game last year where he went for 281, like 2 tubs, but I can't do it. Like, you already talked about all the weapons that he doesn't have. And also, when you think about it, like, they played in Las Vegas and they played in Detroit on the road, both dome games. Now they're playing in the windy city where it's going to be 30-something degrees. It's going to be gusty. The Bears are coming off a beat down in L.A., so the defense is going to be pissed off. Oh, he definitely going under today.
There it is. Under is your winner.
It's time to get to some of those roster questions now. Don't forget to use the hashtag AskFFL. Our first tweet comes from OG1 Kenobi. Very cute. He needs to know J.K. Dobbins, obviously Mark Ingram, not 100%, or Zach Moss. I'm going to go with Zach Moss, noting that Devin Singletary has not looked good over the last 3 games. I think he's been under 50 scrimmage yards for 3 straight. But, Tank, you're the running back this week. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Man, I really don't want anything to do with that Bills running back by committee. They're both like splitting carries. Neither one of them has really looked good. I look at this Baltimore Steelers game where I think it could be a sneaky shootout. We look at so many games with shootout potential, and you have like bad weather elements. I like the fact that instead of having a 3 running back committee with Baltimore, now they have it down to 2 with Mark Ingram sitting out. And they really like Dobbins. He's an explosive player, and I think they'll need that against Pittsburgh, so I give him the edge.
Oh, so sorry, we're split. Hope that helps, Ken. Let's go to our second tweet, which is for Minty specifically. It's from Brittany, and she asks, best underdog to win outright on Sunday, Minty?
Ooh, I actually really like the Raiders to win outright against Cleveland. Like, Cleveland's 5-2, but they've won against bad teams. Cincy twice, Dallas, Washington, I think Indy, and they've lost to good teams, Baltimore and I believe Pittsburgh. So I think there's value here. The Raiders are at even money, so if you can get them at plus money, I think there's value there, and they could win outright and upset Cleveland.
All right, this third tweet comes from Adrian, and Adrian asks, Tyler Lockett versus San Francisco or Tyler Boyd versus Tennessee. Matt, could you possibly sit Tyler? You, not just you specifically, but should anyone sit Tyler Lockett coming off of last week's performance?
Yeah, I mean, me, legally, I can't tell you to sit Tyler Lockett. It's part of a binding contract that I signed with myself. So no, I think I'm still going to go Lockett in this one. Look, I realize that every now and again he's going to drop that 4 for 39 in your lineup, and People will sit there on Twitter and, oh, consistency, you win with consistency. No, you win when your players put up 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, that was his second 3-touchdown outing of the entire year. Yeah, I'm not sitting Tyler Lockett against a secondary that's sure that the Niners have played well overall on defense, but they've still got injuries back there. I think Lockett is the way I would go, even though obviously Boyd is a very safe play as well.
Sir Blankenship, this next question is specifically for you, and it's from Billy Waldman, PPR League Flex Spot. Allen Robinson or Jamal Williams?
Oh, man, how can you not play them both? Must be a shallow league. Look, I got to go Jamal Williams here. It's a great matchup against Minnesota. Williams coming off a terrific week playing in the absence of Aaron Jones. He gets another dose of that. He's going to see 20-plus touches in this one. I like Robinson, but in any sort of format, I would want to start Jamal Williams here.
All right, and this final one comes from Ann. It's a tight end question. She wants to know Dallas Goedert, who's coming back. We haven't seen him for a minute, right? Or Jonnu Smith. I am going to answer this one, and I am going to say Jonnu Smith. I know it's appealing to want to play Dallas Goedert, but Richard Rodgers is still in the mix. We know that Philadelphia obviously likes to keep the tight end position involved, and Carson Wentz likes to target the tight end. But Smith is still a viable option, and Cincy giving away the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing tight end. So that is the way I am going to go. Time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live. Wow, that went quick. When we come back, Andy and Tank face off to decide between Darrell Henderson and Le'Veon Bell. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. Just because we're all virtual here on Fantasy Football Live doesn't mean we can't celebrate game day. Crown Royal is with us all season long, giving our at-home tailgate the royal treatment with team cocktails inspired by one of the biggest fantasy matchups of the week. Tampa Bay is primed to go off in prime time this week against the Giants. So here to add some Florida flavor to your Monday night watch party is Crown Royal bartender Caroline Lease.
My name's Caroline Lease. I'm a bartender in Tampa, Florida, and today I'll be making the Black Sails cocktail. We're gonna start with 2 ounces of Crown Royal Deluxe. And we'll add 2 dashes of black walnut bitters. Next, a 1/4 ounce of your favorite orange liqueur. And roughly a tablespoon of apple butter. Add ice to your mixing glass. If you don't have a mixing glass, any other glass works well as long as you can get some space in there for mixing. And we'll stir to combine. Once that's nice and cold, we'll take your favorite glass, add some fresh ice, and strain. We'll add the oil from the peel of an orange over the glass. And finally, a cinnamon stick for a nice fall garnish. And there you have it, the Black Sails cocktail, perfect for game day.
Florida flavor. I love it. For more recipe inspiration to crown your game day at home, visit crownroyal.com/recipes.
All right, fantasy face-off time. It's Blankenship versus Peyton. We're going to start off talking about a pair of running backs. For me, I like Darrell Henderson this week, but man, Sweetness, you like the revenge narrative for Le'Veon Bell.
Man, do I? I mean, the Jets defense is bad. Like, you remember like when you were a little kid and used to get a whooping and at first you was fighting it and then all of a sudden you just take it? Well, now the Jets defense is just taking it. And Lev Bell actually had a higher average per carry than my man Clyde Edwards-Helaire last week. And the revenge narrative is real and people want to show that they won the trade. So I think Lev Bell gets off today, definitely more than Henderson.
Yeah, I've got no problem with Bell, but Henderson has a pretty spicy matchup too. He's facing Miami. Miami allows the 9th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, so this is a good spot for him. He's averaging 4.7 yards per carry on the season. Over his last 3 games, also averaging 16 touches per contest. Coming off a game with 17 touches, I just slightly prefer the guy who's the head of the committee versus somebody who is number 2 in his team's committee. All right, now we're going to look at a couple of receivers. For me, it's Tyler Boyd. For Tank, it's going to be Brandon Ayuk. And man, I really like both of these guys. I have them back-to-back in my ranks. But tell you why I like Tyler Boyd here. He's just been absolutely money. He's averaging about 9 targets per week, coming off a 100-yard game. The matchup ahead, nothing scary about it against Tennessee. Tennessee has been a quality team, obviously, on the season, but that pass defense hasn't been great. Boyd is going to get the volume. I think double-digit targets here. Good shot at a touchdown. I'm going to take him just barely over Ayuk.
Now, you said the matchup in front of Tyler Boyd isn't scary. Like, I don't even think there is a matchup in front of my man Brandon Ayuk. We got Shaq Griffin out, the slot corner is out, Deebo Samuel is out. Now, we understand that George Kittle is the man, but he's going to get all those targets on the outside, and that matchup against the Seattle secondary is magically delicious. We also may be dealing with some gusty winds there in Cincinnati, too, so I would definitely lean towards my man Ayuk.
Thank you for putting a little respect on George Kittle's name. A lot of people calling Iowa tight end you. That'll do it for Fantasy Face-Off.
Let's get back to those roster questions and make some picks for you. We're looking at mostly flex questions here. So let's start with this one. Where are we? Who do I sit from Ann between Justin Jefferson, Chase Claypool, and Amari Cooper? Matt, I don't think either one of us feels comfortable sitting Justin Jefferson in this matchup. So for me, it's between Chase Claypool and Amari Cooper. Deontay Johnson active. Amari Cooper obviously dealing with DiNucci under center since Dalton's not active. Which of these two, Claypool or Cooper? I think I'm going to lean towards Cooper for the floor because Jefferson's still a little bit more of a ceiling play. Are you going straight ceiling, though, and telling me just to, like, go for it or what?
Yeah, this one's tough, right? Because the Ravens obviously have a good defense. I think this entire Pittsburgh offense is really interesting to talk about. And I hate to go against my guys from Virginia, Ben DiNucci from James Madison University, one of the 3 or 4 colleges that everyone from my high school went to in Virginia. Always give a shout out to my Virginia alums. But nevertheless, don't feel too comfortable about the guy going into Sunday Night Football. I'm going to kind of go with Chase Claypool here. I realize he's volatile, but I think Jefferson at this point is safe enough, especially considering that I think he's going to get the better matchup between him and Adam Thielen. Like, Jair Alexander might be traveling around with Adam Thielen there as the top receiver. I think Jefferson could feast on some of those lesser corners. That's when I love to talk about the wide receiver cornerback matchups, when the one guy is really great as the top guy. Number 2, number 3, number 4, not so much. I think that's the case in Green Bay.
I think that's true. Thielen has historically bested Alexander in their matchups, though. But, all right, so we're going ceiling. Jefferson and Claypool is the consensus here. I think you've convinced me. Let's get to tweet number 2. It's from Kyle, and he asks, Josh Kelly, J.K. Dobbins, Rex Burkhead, T.J. Hawkinson, Evan Ingram. He needs 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 1 flex. We got bad matchups all around here. Brutal for the tight ends. My goodness. All right, Matt. I think I'm going to go J.K. Dobbins and T.J. Hawkinson. And then, even though he's been a garbage time monster, if I'm thinking about the weather in Orchard Park, Rex Burkhead as my flex. Am I crazy?
No, I like that because you look at like Josh Kelly at this point, like not only do they have not a great matchup there with the Broncos, like they're pretty good on run defense. They fly around the ball. They're just obviously well coached there in Denver. Kelly at this point has been the clear loser in terms of who's going to emerge with Austin Eckler out between him and Justin Jackson. Not that Justin Jackson is like a league winner or anything like that. This is a Herbert-centric offense, but he pretty much just hasn't been a guy that you can even consider playing in fantasy. Obviously, Burkhead is as risky as it gets because there's all of those running back committees going on there, of course, but good matchup against the Bills, who are, you know, towards the bottom half of the league in terms of run defense right now. So it's risky, but I think that J.K. Dobbins at this point, is with marking him out, is probably safe enough for you to feel pretty good about that. And I do like Hawkinson over Ingram. I mean, has there been a more frustrating player? Like now that Zach Ertz is out of the mix, it's like clearly Evan Ingram is the frustration du jour in fantasy football at tight end.
Du jour. Last question. This is from Brett. He needs one wide receiver and one flex. Mike Evans, James Conner, Brandon Ayuk, Gio Bernard, and Boston Scott. These are some nice backup options, but I think I might want to start both starters, Evans and Conner. Or are you going to convince me otherwise?
No, I'm going backup special here. Look, I like James Conner. He's like looking much better throughout the course of the season. I think Evans at this point, like obviously he's going to draw most of James Bradbury, I think, in this game. You know, I don't expect at this point Evans to be a guy that you can rely on a week-to-week basis, even with Chris Godwin out of the mix here. I think Gio and Boston Scott just set up so well from a touch projections perspective. And like the Titans have a bad defense. They're not very good. They're like kind of sneaky bad. And Dallas is like all the way out loud bad. So I feel like both of those two running backs set up so well that you played the waiver wire well. You got these guys for a reason. Throw them in the lineup before the starters get back.
All right. Well, keep sending in those questions. We'll get to more flex picks later in the show.
All right, player prop time from our friends at BetMGM. You can go bet these things right now. I'm going to get us started with Nick Foles. The number on him for interceptions this week is just half an interception. Is he going to throw one? Heck yes, he's going to throw one, because he always throws one. He's actually thrown a pick in every game so far. He's played 5. He's thrown 6 interceptions. He is always willing to give the ball away to an opponent. We got a little bit of a windstorm here in Chicago. It's cold. There is no way he's going through this afternoon without throwing a pick. Minty, what do you like this week?
Alrighty, well, I have to go with Patrick, don't call him Pat, Mahomes, under 22.5 rushing yards. He's a young but not so mobile quarterback. I mean, he even said himself he would not be able to run as far as Daniel Jones did that Thursday night against the Eagles. And the Jets are almost dead last in QB pressures. They're not really impressive against the pass, so I don't think Patrick Mahomes will have to scramble out of the pocket anywhere. So give me the under for rushing yards for Patrick Mahomes.
Tank, make the people a little money.
Man, I'm going with Myles Gaskins with over 88.5 total yards, rushing yards and receiving yards, because this dude has had 91 against the San Francisco 49ers. He followed that over with 126 versus the Jets. Now he's going against the Los Angeles Rams, flying east on a short week, who's actually been pretty friendly to a lot of teams' running backs, whether you're looking at the Giants, Eagles, and everybody in between, Dallas. And so when you look at Tua starting this game, his first start, they're going to lean on the running back to try to help lather up the young pup. So I definitely think Gaskins is going to have enough gas in the can to get him over this total yardage.
Oh, I love it. I need it. Folks, if you feel like taking a chance on any of these player props, sign up today at betmgm.com/Yahoo. New users will receive a 100% match up to $1,000 when you make your first deposit. Must be over 21 and in New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, or West Virginia. Terms apply.
Every Sunday night, I file my weekly recap column where I tell you about the 5 things I care about and the 5 things I don't care about. And as a guy dressed as a serial killer for Halloween, I can really thank all you lunatics out there for reading that thing late at night. But let's talk about going into this week. One thing that I really don't care about, and I don't care about the NFC East stink when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, because I think the Eagles are actually about to rise above that, and be a true contending type of team. Yes, I know, it's crazy. The Eagles have not looked great on balance all year. However, they're about to move on from the past. Like, we constantly talk about the Eagles, like, when's Deshaun Jackson going to play? Is Alshon Jeffrey going to be active? Zach Ertz, what's up with the connection there? Who cares? I don't, because the Eagles are about to get a new look. The cavalry is coming in to help out Carson Wentz, who, by the way, pretty sneaky QB7 in fantasy football on the season. Travis Fulgham, we know, has emerged as a stud. Over the last 4 weeks, he's 5th in the NFL in targets, and he's 3rd in the NFL in yards. Well, it's about to get even better than that because Dallas Goedert is back. 17 targets in the first 2 weeks. Jalen Reagor, we saw his vertical playmaking ability. He's about to get back into the fold. Eventually, Miles Sanders will get back out there. This is going to be a new look Eagles offense. They're going to be fast. They're going to be young. No one cares about these players that they went to glory with in the Super Bowl a few years ago for Deshaun Jackson, like basically a decade ago. The past is gone. It's dead in Philadelphia. A new look is arising, and I think the Eagles can actually be like a real team now that the cavalry is kind of coming back. So I'm buying in on all of these guys ascending in fantasy football. I'm buying in on the Eagles starting Sunday night. I mean, give me a break against this Dallas defense and my guy from JMU, Ben DiNucci, at quarterback over there. I think it starts tonight. They show that there is a clear separation between them at the top of the NFC East and the rest of the goofballs. I don't feel great, being an Eagles optimist or anything like that, but I think here the rest of 2020, we're going to start to forget about the rest of the NFC East stink and show you that the Eagles are a clear team ready to rise above and be an actual team worthy of a playoff spot, and that is not enough. Now, time for another break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, we're going to check in on what's trending, and Andy Behrens, oh man, he's going to take them glasses off, hopefully, so he can see some of you the bets that he's going to be making on the fantasy flex options we got coming up. Don't go away.
We are back here on season 15 of FFL. Let's check in on who's trending this morning. We have J.K. Dobbins, Leonard Fournette, LaMichael Pirine, talked about him a little bit earlier, and T. Higgins, maybe that, yeah, T. Higgins could also maybe be Rashard Higgins. Let's discuss first, you know what, I want to ask Matt about Leonard Fournette, because Matt, you have been over the summer and throughout the top of the season a Rojo stan, but are you believing at all in Fournette's 97 scrimmage yards last week?
Well, I think you always have to look at this Bucs backfield kind of like you did with the Patriots, which is mostly you're looking at game script. You're kind of deciding what do you expect the game flow to look like. And, you know, Dalton Del Don, my partner in crime on the Wednesday Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast podcast, he said that, like, Rojo kind of reminds him of LeGarrette Blount, which is weird because they both wore number 27. They don't really play anything alike. But, you know, Blount also got to start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But, like, Blount back in the day with the Patriots when he was riding high was basically no passing game work. You didn't want him out there catching footballs. And, like, you'd think Fournette, like the bigger guy, he would be that player. But no, Fournette's been the passing down back. Jones has been the guy on early downs. And we know that when the Bucs have a lead, they're playing, you know, really well with that lead. They can crush teams on the ground with Ronald Jones. We saw that over that 3-week stretch without Fournette when he went over 300 yards rushing. So he's a risky play, of course, but I think against the Bucs, yeah, I think I'm going to be projecting the Bucs to be playing with a very favorable game script against the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. So I feel like that's not necessarily the script that you want for Fournette, who weirdly they have in this passing down back role.
Very well stated. Tank, you talked earlier in the episode about your love for J.K. Dobbins, but Gus Edwards is still on the field in scoring situations. He had 2 red zone looks last week. I think this matchup against Pittsburgh is fascinating because Baltimore is coming out of a bye, and like in order to beat the Steelers, Lamar Jackson is going to have to throw the ball and not just run it. Is that why? Because obviously the Steelers' run defense is completely staunch and their secondary can be beat. We keep saying it. FYI, I think Hollywood Brown like cuts loose this week, even though I've been saying that. But is that why you're preferring Dobbins? Because you see a passing game forward game script here?
I mean, I think the reason I like Dobbins is, one, that they select him in the second round, and then 2, we even saw early in the season that they were willing to give Dobbins some early carries in the red zone over Mark Ingram, over Gus Edwards. And now that Mark Ingram is out and you've invested that much in the J.K. Dobbins, and this is a game where you need all the explosive players on the field that you can. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense has shown that they can score points against any and every defense. And so in order for them to match that, they need to get their explosive playmakers on the field. Now, I can understand maybe running Gus Edwards out there for a couple, like running his head into a brick wall on the goal line. But if you really want to maximize Lamar Jackson's potential, you want an explosive guy in the backfield where if Lamar tucks it and runs, people focus on J.K. And then obviously if you're focusing on Lamar, then J.K. could get busy. So I think he adds that extra dimension to the offense, which they will need because they haven't been able to throw the ball as effectively as they have last year. So in that thinking alone, that's why I think that J.K. Dobbins would be a solid play this week.
I think that makes sense. I like Dobbins a lot coming out of the into the draft, into the NFL draft, into April. Minty, I have a question for you. We have Michael P. Ryan. I already talked about him, how he's a theoretical fantasy freebie, right? Has some potential with Frank Gore having his hand hurt and the play calling duties being taken away or handed off from Adam Gase to Dell Loggins. Amazing. But when I'm looking at the over-under here and the odds for this matchup that the Jets have against Kansas City, Kansas City is 19.5-point favorites. Is that something as a bettor that you're just ignore? I mean, do you even bother being contrarian here? It does seem like a massive amount of points, though.
I'm staying away from this game for sure. Like, this point spread is way too big. And you know what? Kansas City, they're coming off a win against Denver in Denver. It takes some time to acclimate back to normal altitude. So I honestly don't think the Chiefs will cover the 19.5, 20 point spread here. So I would lean the Jets to cover 20 points, but I am not betting it. It's way too risky.
All right, I don't blame you about that risk, but also another player that's been a bit risky is Travis Fulgham. Matt, do you have an over/under on him?
Oh, yes, I do. Let's pull it up here. The over/under we're going to set on Travis Fulgham in this Sunday Night Football showdown of NFC East greats, 13.9 fantasy points. This one, I mean, give me a break. Guys, this is so easy. I said it earlier. Fulgham, 9 targets per game over the last 3 weeks. Top 5 in yards and targets. Easy over against a Dallas Cowboys defense. Fulgham, I talked about Ben DiNucci as one of my Virginia super sleeper stars there from JMU. Fulgham, ODU, Old Dominion University, another great Virginia school. My sister is actually getting married next week. She's a ODU alum. So look at this. It all comes full circle. Give me the easy over here. Tank, please tell me. You agree with me on that?
I mean, Doug, you had me at they were playing the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I don't care who you can roll out somebody that got a broken leg. As long as they're going against the Dallas Cowboys, I'm going over. Like, this dude is average. He's had 34 targets, 21 receptions, and 300 yards, 2 tubs in the last 3 games, and that was against all tougher competition than who? The Dallas Cowboys. Like, anybody's going to honey roast that secondary, so this is an easy play for me. Over.
Minty, are you going to make this one a sweep here? Please, come on.
Yes, absolutely. Over. You guys have said it all. I think them going up against, this non-existent Dallas defense is very important. I think Carson Wentz is going to find Fulgham, Hightower too, Rager too, but Fulgham definitely gets a touchdown and some significant yardage here. So I say over 13.9 fantasy points.
Like Tank said, Fulgham has been dunking on good competition, so naturally, because it's fantasy football and things get a little weird, Fulgham's going to post like 5 catches for like 25 yards in this juicy spot. That's about how this is going to go.
All right, Matt, you talked about things getting weird in fantasy football, and that's what this next segment is all about. Here are players that could be off their game, normally studs, but maybe not in Week 8. I'm going to kick things off with Devontae Parker. We have yet to talk about in this show that Tua Tagovailoa is having his first start as a pro. He's come out of the bye. We know that Devontae Parker has been money. I think he's gone over 100 yards or scored in 3 of his last 6. But the last time we saw him before he hit his bye, he was exiting the field with a groin injury. His chemistry with Fitzmagic has been on point, but Tua is still a rookie, even an explosive one. And who is going to baptize him in his first matchup? Oh, one Aaron Donald. And who is going to be covering Devontae Parker? One Jalen Ramsey. I have him forecasted for 4 catches and 57 yards. Don't quite trust it. Will be happily proven wrong by Tua just for the sake of good football if I am indeed wrong. Matt, what about you? Who do you think might be off their game?
Really like that call, Liz. I want to see Tua and Devontae Parker hit on some of those tight window throws, but you talked about things being weird in fantasy football. Yeah, if you drafted Lamar Jackson as the difference maker for your fantasy team in the early rounds, you pretty much hate yourself at this point because he's QB 15 on the season. The Ravens right now rank 21st as a passing unit in Football Outsiders DVOA. And yeah, look, obviously I think the Ravens are going to figure it out at some point, but they have not thrown for more than 210 yards since their Week 1 opener against the Cleveland Browns. And I don't know that, even though they're coming off their bye, so maybe they got some things going here. I mean, obviously they added Dez Bryant. That's going to be the difference. I'm not so sure about that, especially going against a Pittsburgh defense that right now is the second most blitz-happy team in the NFL, and Lamar Jackson has a 75 passer rating when blitzed. That's actually been a key part of how teams have sort of taken Jackson away as an outside rushing threat, forced him to stay in the pocket. So pretty bad matchup on paper for Jackson in this spot. Actually, in our fantasy community segment later, I talked with Kate Majuk about this matchup. She offers you some pretty good streamers that you could potentially play ahead of Lamar this week.
This, to me, is one of the most fascinating matchups of the week. Going to be keeping a tight eye on it. But now let's toss it over to Minty for her best bet, say that 8 times, for Week 8.
All right, everyone, welcome to Mad Bets. It's Week 8 of the NFL. Let's start with the matchup between the Niners and the Seahawks. The Seahawks are 2.5-point favorites. The total is set at 53.5. I actually like the over here. I know that this is going to be one of the better defenses that Seattle will face so far this season, but I cannot ignore that Seattle's offense is averaging 33 points per game. They're second in passing yards and 12th in rushing yards. Also, they've got no defense, so San Francisco's going to score easily. Seattle's going to find a way to score easily. I think this is going to be a close shootout, so give me the over for this game. Next up for Sunday Night Football, we've got an ugly NFC East matchup between the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, can you believe the Eagles are 11-point or 12-point home favorites? I don't like that. And the total is set pretty low at 42.5. I like the under here. I just cannot lose any more money betting on the Cowboys, as I think they've given up for the rest of the season. And the Eagles have some key players either on injury or just coming off of injury, but I do think their defense can hold it down and put a little pressure on Dallas's third string quarterback. So give me the under here, as this matchup has historically gone 5-2 to the under when the Cowboys are road underdogs. And lastly, let's wrap it up with Monday Night Football between the Giants and the Bucks. Now, the Bucks are laying 13 on the road, and the total set at 44.5. I like the under here as well. Another primetime game, another under. I do expect Tampa Bay to blow out the Giants. However, I don't feel comfortable laying 13 points with the Bucks or taking 13 points with the Giants. Now, Tampa's offense is really getting it together, and Tampa's defense is the difference here. They're third in pass defense DVOA, first in rush defense DVOA, and they're third in sacks. So the under is the play for me at 44.5. Guys, if you want more episodes of Mad Bets, please follow us on Twitter at Yahoo Sportsbook.
All right, Liz, it's time to do the thing we love to do the most, which is check in with our Looney Tunes in the chat room who think they're screaming into the void, but oh no, we are listening. So, folks out there, hit me with some good emojis right now in the chat room because we're going to be taking your question. Let's start off with this one. Aaron from Facebook sends in a couple stop sign emojis, the ghost, the coffin, the lightning, the fireball. A lot of good mixture there. Aaron wants to know, he needs 2 running backs and 1 flex play here from Myles Gaskin, Jamal Williams, Boston Scott, Dalvin Cook, and Mike Evans. Whoa, that's a lot of some tempting options there. I think Jamal Williams, Liz, he's the definite of this group. Probably Dalvin Cook as he's active as well. But who are we going for that third spot? Are you taking one of those 2 guys out of the lineup in this mix?
No, I agree that Jamal Williams, especially with the reports of some gusts, some wind gusts, I think you're going to lean on the running back position. And I like Cook even coming off of an injury. You said there was also Mike Evans and Boston Scott available for your flex. Is that right?
And Myles Gaskin.
And Myles Gaskin. Okay, so game script wise, I don't like Gaskin, but volume with Tua makes sense. I still don't like it enough to play him over Boston Scott. Tank said earlier in the show that he would play anyone with a broken leg against Dallas. I think I have to go that way. You made the point about Evans being, we'll do an over-under about Evans specifically a little bit later, but about him being volatile. So I think I'm going to flex Boston Scott as my third option.
Yeah, Gaskin does have a good matchup against the Rams team that has just kind of invited the run. So I don't hate him in this spot, but I think I'd go with Scott there. Let's take Brittany Cook's question from YouTube. Shout out to our YouTube viewers. Very simple here. She keeps it simple. Got the football, got the jack-o'-lantern. All right, very in theme. Let's keep moving. Josh Jacobs or Darrell Henderson in a standard league. Liz, I've kind of talked myself into this being the week where, there's all these weather concerns, whatever in Cleveland. I don't care as much about that. But we know that the Raiders have sort of found this deep passing identity, right? This is who they are now. They kind of want to get back to their roots, okay? I think this is a week they saddle up Josh Jacobs with 25 touches in that bad weather. Let him run against the Cleveland team that can certainly be beat up front. I think I'm taking Josh Jacobs here as his first get-right game in a while.
Well, Josh Jacobs needs to get right health-wise. I mean, you can see Andy made a point on the pod that he is always all kinds of banged up, and the Cleveland run defense, pretty decent here. I do have to, though, I'm looking at tiebreakers and volume and talent as those tiebreakers, and for those reasons, I have to go with Jacobs, even though Henderson is the RB1 for the Rams. Watching Malcolm Brown rip off chunk gains against the Bears was pretty impressive. So I think volume-wise, I'm going to lean towards Jacobs and just hope he gets real healthy. We've seen him play through plenty of injuries anyway.
Like that call. Yeah, there's a universe where Darrell Henderson is the new Todd Gurley getting all these touches because he looks that good. He looks good enough to be doing it, but we don't exist in that reality. Well, Brian from Twitter, I love that we've got, all our platforms here. We've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we got YouTube. This is great. I'm killing it here in the chat section. Shout out to me. Sit one. I love this question that we got to sit one. We don't start players. It's a very challenging thing here. We got to sit one of the. I got to sit one of the 3 here. Darren Waller, Deontay Johnson, Justin Jefferson. I love also that they sent a jack-o'-lantern sort of transitioning into a pumpkin or a pie emoji here. That's going from Halloween to Thanksgiving. Well done, Brian. Love it. All right, Liz, I've filibustered enough here. Which one of these 3 guys are you sitting?
Thank you for giving me extra time, but I didn't need it on this one. I'm going to sit Deontay Johnson. He still has trouble staying on the field and healthy. We know that Claypool could be, an option if he is out. I like Jefferson. You made the point about him finding softer coverage in this matchup against Green Bay. And Darren Waller against the Browns, give it to me all day long. So yes, I'm going to sit Johnson.
Yeah, Darren Waller might be the best tight end play on the slate here against the Browns team who allows the most yards to slot receivers. We know Darren Waller's like a glorified slot receiver. All right, make sure you come back to wherever you're watching this. All those platforms I talked about. Come back and watch our fantasy football halftime show. Liz and I will be breaking it down during the early game slate, talking about all of what's tilting you, what's jilting you, the whole thing. We're gonna be checking the chat there again too. So Liz and I, we're always dialed into what you need.
There are still lots of flex decisions to discuss and help out fantasy managers. So let's get to our fantasy win, place, or show presented by the 2020 Breeders' Cup. With the World Championships coming up on November 6th and 7th, we're going to use racing terminology to rank flex plays this week. So Andy will be betting win, place, or show based on what fantasy managers can expect in Week 8. Andy, give us your best Pat day, please. Take it away.
Yeah, my win here, no doubt about it, gonna pay off this week, is Brandon Ayuk. You heard Tank talk about him earlier in the show. Ayuk coming off a day with 6 catches, over 100 yards. He's got a couple of rushing scores on the year. They manufacture all kinds of ways to get him the ball. This week, no Deebo Samuel for the Niners. That plays really well for Ayuk. He's gonna be heavily targeted. And it's Seattle. They allow almost 370 passing yards per week. They rank dead last against the pass in the league. Going to be a blow-up spot for Ayuk. I love him here. Place this week, somebody who can be a solid wide receiver too, in my opinion. But Cole Beasley, how about we show a little respect for this guy? He's actually on pace for a career high in receiving yards. On pace right now for almost 1,100 yards on the season. Coming off a huge day in terms of targets, over 100 yards. He's scored a couple of touchdowns so far this year. I know that instinctively you kind of fear the Patriots as a matchup, but first of all, no Gilmore this week. Second of all, they've given up over 8 yards per pass attempt on the season. This has not been a stay-away defense at all. I think Cole Beasley can go off here again. He's been reliably double-digit fantasy points in PPR formats pretty much all season. Place this week, somebody who I think can finish as a very startable flex, a wide receiver 3. That's going to be Scotty Miller. And you want to get him in your lineup this week because Antonio Brown is going to show up and Godwin's going to come back, and all of a sudden all those Scotty Miller targets are going to go away. But he has had some blow-up weeks so far. He's actually 5th among all wide receivers right now in average intended air yards, so he gets some deep shots. He's coming off a game with 9 targets, over 100 yards. This guy is a very strong play against a New York Giants defense that ranks bottom 3rd against the pass. So to review, Brandon Ayuk, a clear win this week. Cole Beasley, a solid place. And Scotty Miller, he's going to be your show, that 3rd place finisher this week, a very startable flex. Don't forget to place your bets for the Breeders' Cup World Championships on November 6th and 7th, where the world's top thoroughbreds will battle it out for $31 million over 14 races, only on NBC Sports. We're going to take another break right now, and when we come back, it's our resident DFS expert, Tank Williams, with his strongest plays for Week 8. All right, final over-under, and we're looking at the Monday Nighter. We're going to talk about Mike Evans, and here's a reasonable line for Evans, 89.5 receiving yards. I will start us off here. I think he's going to go over this total. I realize he's actually only had 2 big yardage games all season, and every other week has been, well, you're just hoping for a touchdown, not many yards. But this week, no Antonio Brown joining the party yet, no Chris Godwin. It's got to be a lot of Mike Evans, a little bit of Scotty Miller, a little bit of Gronk. The matchup, again, fantastic. Maybe you're concerned about Bradbury, but Mike Evans has seen a ton of Bradbury over the years, had 96 receiving yards the last time he saw him. So I think, again, Evans way over this number. Minty, do you agree?
Wow, way over. That's optimistic. I think this number is set too high, so I actually like the under here. Like you said, he's only hit the over, 89.5 receiving yards twice this season, and he hasn't really been targeted much. So I think Tom Brady's going to maybe utilize the running backs a little bit more, so I say under.
All right, Liz, break the tie.
I mean, Andy, what a way to lead us in. This is a reasonable expectation. I will say it is reasonable, but let me get to you for a second. No Chris Godwin, broken index finger. In the 3 games in which Chris Godwin was out this season, Mike Evans saw a minimum of 8 targets, and he scored in all 3 of those matchups, cleared 100 yards in 2 of them. However, I was on Fearless Forecast for wide receivers this week, and I have Evans forecasted for 71 yards and a touchdown, so I have to take the under.
Way to stay faithful to your forecast. I guess you heard it. 2 of us going under. That's it. I'll take the L on this one. Right now, our resident DFS expert, Hank, he's always balling on a budget, and he has this week's Daily Fantasy Savers presented by Chase Freedom Unlimited. With the Chase Freedom Unlimited credit card, you can earn cash back on new categories like travel purchased through Chase, dining, and drugstores, so you're always earning. Hank, hit us with your DFS value picks for Week 8.
Yes, what it do, baby? It's your boy T Money coming with my Week 8 value plays that we sponsor. Mama, I made it. All right, at quarterback, we're going with Jimmy Garoppolo against the Seattle Seahawks. $26. Like, we've already talked about this matchup. Like, going against the Seattle secondary is like going against an invisible thing. And I tell you this, like, if Kirk Cousins can rise from the dead and throw for like 250 and 2 tubs against the Seattle secondary, I don't think I need to give you any more information about why this is an amazing matchup for Jimmy G. So at $26, just make sure you like my man into the lineup. I mean, look at that smile. How can you go against that Jimmy G? Looking so cute. Now let's go on now to my running back, Jamal Williams, going against the Vikings, $20. Now, first off, that's my cousin. And now, 2, he's going against the Vikings. Now, that's not, a cupcake matchup, but the way I look at it is this. Aaron Jones, if healthy, was priced at $34 in this matchup. So after Jamal Williams gets busy against the Houston Texans, you mean to tell me that he's only worth $20 when he's getting all that volume in the run and pass game against the Vikings in a smash spot for the Packers? Oh, this is definitely a must play, must plug him in. My cousin's going to get off today. Now, at wide receiver, I'm going with the man Brandon Ayuk, also going against Seattle at $22. Now, we've already talked about this guy a lot. No Deebo Samuel. My man Shanahan likes to scheme up ways to get the ball in his hand, whether we're talking about quick screens, little handoff. The dude is mad explosive, jumping over guys. Now we're going against the Seattle secondary that was already giving up points in bunches with no Shaq Griffin. And then we have the slot corner banged up too. Now this matchup is scrum diddly-umptious, and I'm sure that this dude is going to take full advantage of one of the better matchups in the league this week. And now at tight end, I'm going with Darren Waller at $21. And Liz and Matt already talked a lot about this. Like, the Cleveland Browns give up the most yards and bunches in the slot. This dude is priced at $21. And if you look at it, Travis Kelce is $27. George Kittle is $26. Mark Andrews is $23. So if you're looking for value, whoop, there it is. And the Cleveland Browns give up the 12th most fantasy points to fantasy tight end. So this is an easy play for me, where a guy where you know he's going to get mad targets, going to get targets in the end zone, and the price is just too cheap to overlook. So, as I always say, remember that the T is for the money, but you also have to remember that the Chase Freedom Unlimited credit card, you need to check that out. because you can start earning cash back on every purchase. So make sure you visit thechasefreedom.com for more details, but make sure you also visit me to make sure you get your fantasy lineups in order. Now, Producer Dan, go on to those fantasy rankings and show everybody why I'm the best man out there. Now, my girl Lizzie put up a solid score last week. I think she beat me by like a point or two, but you still see that your boy is running away. Now, I think, Minty is, in second. Liz is close behind. Matt is in the hunt. I feel all these guys just breathing on my neck. There's just somebody that got the goggles on. Maybe he can't see what he's putting into his lineup on a weekly basis because he is struggling. So do you have any explanation for why you're doing so poorly? You're only doing the 700s, Cheese. Come on now, Andy. What we got?
It's possible that I let last year's celebration maybe carry over into the off season a little bit. Didn't train the way I normally do, so yeah, okay, I got off to a little bit of a slow start, but don't we drop like our 7 lowest scores? I could be right back in this thing.
You wish, Dougie.
We all wish. There's still time to get in on the action in the new Yahoo Cup BetMGM Daily Contest. Enter every week for a chance at $75,000 in total prizes, and the top 25 lineups each week will be entered in the Yahoo Cup BetMGM Final, where you could win free rooms from MGM Resorts or a $20,000 Vegas getaway. Head to yahoo.com/dailyfantasy to join.
This week's fantasy community, I'm excited to be joined by Kate Majuk. Kate is the superhuman in chief at Ball Blast Football. She's also the host of the Ball Blast Football podcast. Kate, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you for hanging out with me. This is such an honor to be here. I think this is one of the most incredible things about this community is the connection that we're able to build with each other. It's such a small, tight-knit group. So excited to be here.
I know so much about you by being a part of the community. I knew that you were a Pittsburgh Steelers backer. You even come dressed appropriately to the discussion today.
Of course.
You and I are going to kind of dive into this Pittsburgh Steelers Baltimore Ravens matchup. Let's start on the Ravens side of the field. Right now, if you drafted Lamar Jackson, you pretty much hate yourself for the fact that he's QB 15. He has only passed for more than 210 yards once on the season. How are you feeling like this Ravens offense coming off a bye? Do you think there's any chance that they sort of kind of find themselves in this matchup?
I think one of the things going against them is the fact that these Steelers are rolling, and that's not even to toot our own horns, but they're ranked top 5 in DVOA for defense. Lamar Jackson making some more questionable decisions. He's looked good against average matchups, but anytime he's sort of been put to the test, like against the Chiefs, and I think the Steelers will be one of those tests, he hasn't performed.
I think the key matchup between these two teams on both sides of it, both of these two teams are ranked first and second in terms of blitz percentage, but they perform vastly different. Lamar, he's been blitzed on 32% of his dropbacks. He has a 75.4 passer rating. I think that's a tough matchup. Conversely, Ben Roethlisberger is getting the ball out of his hands so fast when they send extra pressure. 2.1 time to throw. That is unbelievably fast. 130 passer rating. They've been efficient as sort of that matriculating down the field, hyper efficient short passing. How do you see not just Ben, but also these pass catchers performing in this spot?
So I think they're in a good spot, and maybe not necessarily for our fantasy teams, because I think the Steelers are just a really, really tricky team to roster at this point. I don't think Ben, has quite the ceiling we saw maybe in 2018 with his top 5 year. But the pass catchers, they all benefit from the fact that there are so many viable weapons in that offense, including James Conner, who's a pretty efficient receiver himself. Deontay Johnson, the emergence of Chase Claypool, the fact that you do have Juju there as a possession slot receiver. It's just so much to cover, even for a defense as strong as the Baltimore Ravens.
Those Steelers receivers, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, put them in order for me in terms of which one you'd rather have the rest of the season.
Rest of the season, I will take Deontay Johnson because I do think that he's going to finish out the season with the most volume. Then I'll go Chase Claypool because I do think he's got literally everything you need: size, speed. Juju's like the odd man out right now. I mean, I'm considering dropping him in redraft, and it hurts.
Yeah,
it hurts.
Yeah, I hear you. But look, Kate, that's why I like you. You had the correct order. That's the exact same order I would have had the guys in. Kate Majute, thank you so much for hanging out with me here in the Fantasy Community segment. Tell the people out there where they can find you, where they can listen to your podcast, everything that you've got going on.
You can find all of our work at ballblastfootball.com. We've got we've got a whole team of writers there pumping out dynasty content, redraft content, and then check us out on the Ball Blast podcast. Ball Blast, one word. We have some fun, have some White Claws. It's a good time.
I'm looking forward to, I need to get an invite back on the pod, drink some White Claws with you guys. I'm looking forward to it. Everyone go check them out. They're the best. Really appreciate it, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's check back in on Twitter for some more viewer questions at the hashtag AskFFL. All right, this one first comes from Caroline. Travis Fulgham, Tyler Boyd, or Jamal Williams for my flex. Oh, Tank, can she possibly sit Jamal Williams in this one?
Man, I can't sit my cousin. I mean, the way I look at it is just when you have a solid running back option for your flex, I mean, you look at the guaranteed floor. You know he's going to get touches in the run game. He's going to be utilized in the pass game, so that makes him a safer play. Like, we've already talked about how much we love Fulgham. You know, Tyler Boyd, he's going to get peppered with targets out of the slot, but I'm a little bit worried about the weather there. But when you look at it from this perspective, Jamal Williams clearly has the higher floor. He also has upside too, so that's why he's my play.
Okay, let's get to the second question. I agree on that one for sure, and it is from Steven. 10-team full PPR rather, Jamal Williams or Cole Beasley in his flex. Oh my goodness, Andy Behrens, I know that you like Cole Beasley, but are you starting him in favor of Jamal Williams?
Yeah, I mean, I did want to get people excited about Cole Beasley a little bit, but not this excited. This would be crazy. I'm going to go Tank's cousin here, and it's an easy call. Again, the volume is absolutely going to be there against Minnesota. He's going to be your featured runner for the Packers. There's going to be 20-plus touches for Williams in this game, probably 4 or 5 catches. He's an easy play for me. Good shot at finding the end zone, too.
Well, Andy, if those glasses haven't given you a headache yet, I hope this next question doesn't, because it is directed at you from Jim. Dare I start Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson today?
I mean, I get it. I get the frustration over Lamar Jackson. Let's just keep in mind that he's not hurt. He's still the guy who set the single season per game scoring record at his position last year. A big part of the problem for Jackson is they have not played enough competitive games. They're going to get one today. Like, he's going to be throwing throughout. He's going to be regular Lamar Jackson mode throughout. I'm going to go with him. It's not a simple matchup necessarily for Justin Herbert in this one either. He's overcome bad matchups before, but for me, with the rushing upside, I'm going Lamar.
Matt, I know that you're also looking in the chat, but here's a question from Twitter that I'd like you to consider. Brandon Ayuk, it is from Don, or Boston Scott. What say you?
Yeah, a couple of waiver wire heroes here. You gotta love it. I feel like if you're looking for more of that safer, projectable floor, you've got to go with Scott. Like, he's mostly the guy. Now that Miles Sanders is out, we know that the matchup is juicy there. So I feel like if that's the way you want to go, you got to go towards Scott. To be honest, that's probably the way I would lean, because as much as I like Brandon Ayuk, I love the way they've schemed things up for him. I love that he's been productive despite the fact he kind of had an injury-filled offseason. We know the matchup is great against Seattle. I could still easily see someone else, like a Kendrick Bourne, or maybe it's just all George Kittle going off in this spot against that Seahawks defense. So I feel like Scott is your safer play here, as much as I do like Brandon Ayuk's upside.
I totally agree with you. The shenanigans, Tank, you're the one who says it the best. Shenanigans are not just are not just relegated to the backfield. It could certainly happen among the wide receivers as well. Also, Jamal Adams not healthy, so I think we're still looking at a very big Kittle day. I don't think people are thinking about that as much. Tweet number 5 comes from Sean. Sean wants to know, this is a standard league, so Andy, I'm going to send this to you. Flex Amari Cooper, or AJ Green.
Yeah, listen, I don't know how anybody can trust the DiNucci experience today. I can't trust Amari Cooper. I've still got him ranked as something like a wide receiver 2, fringy wide receiver 3, but I don't think I would actually play him. if I had viable alternatives, and AJ Green is a totally viable alternative. He's seen double-digit targets in back-to-back games, over 90 yards a couple weeks ago, then over 80 yards. Like, he's a bankable play right now, and Amari Cooper simply is not.
Couldn't have said it better. All right, we're going to take a break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, Matt and I face off to debate a pair of veteran quarterbacks who are both underdogs this week. We'll be right back. And we're back here on Fantasy Football Live. We got 8 games getting ready to kick off here at the top of the hour. Let's check in on our own feeds and see what folks want to know. Andy, who is asking you what right now?
Got a question from Matt here, and this looks like a lot of my questions. This is dealing with the Ravens backfield. He wants to know Dobbins or DeAndre Swift. I just keep picking against the Ravens backfield all day, right? Like, a lot of people asking about Dobbins. They drafted him thinking that he could become the featured runner for Baltimore. I get it. Hasn't happened at this point in the season. No Ingram today, so you're excited. But it's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh ranks number 2 overall against the run. Brutal matchup. And the team loves Gus Edwards. I hate to inform you that they're still going to give Gus the ball like 14, 15, 16 times in this thing. So that steers me away from Dobbins. I'm going to go Swift. Led the Lions backfield last time in total snaps, saw 13 touches. He's a bankable play, and he's getting a lot of receiving volume as well.
So Matt asked a question of Andy, but our Matt is going to answer the next question, and from whom?
Yeah, actually, that question was from me for Andy, so I really appreciate him helping me out here. It's always nice of us co-hosts to do stuff for each other. Thomas Spencer sent me in a question. I've been getting this one a little bit, kind of about this 49ers backfield. Like, should you play Tevin Coleman or JaMychal Hasty? And I think this is interesting to discuss because, Liz, you talked about it, the Shanahanigans. Like, this is always a thing that we've got to be aware of. And yeah, obviously, like, there's been talk about Jerick McKinnon dealing with a tired knee. Hey, man, my knee is tired all the time too, and I have not had surgery on it twice. Okay, like, I get it. It's tough. I understand why your knee is tired. Totally get it. That's viable. So do we see them start to back off the Jerick McKinnon experience now that Raheem Mostert has been joined on IR by Jeff Wilson? That's quite possible. Obviously, we know that could be the case. So Tevin Coleman, JaMychal Hasty, like Tevin Coleman is kind of the forgotten guy in this mix, but we know the coaching staff loves him. I think that if I was forced to start one, like I definitely want to get Coleman on my roster just in case. So then when he goes off in this spot, I can start him next week and he gives me 2 points. That's going to be awesome. But if I was forced to play one this week, it would be Hasty because I think he's looked legit explosive when he's gotten chances. We know the matchup is good with Seattle, although I did tell someone earlier today that if you want to play Hasty, you pretty much have to accept, like, you're either going to get 2 or 20 points. So go into it with your eyes wide open. If you can accept that risk onto your lineup, I think I'd go with Hasty.
Okay, and Minty, what about you? What are you seeing at the sportsbook?
I got a question from Glenn. What do you think of my money line parlay? Steelers, Niners, Packers, Colts. I think the Packers should be a safer one against the Vikings. I actually am on the Steelers myself, so I think that's a good one. I think the only ones that might be risky are going to be the Niners and the Colts. The Colts are playing the Lions. I don't like to bet against Matthew Stafford as he's the comeback quarterback. And the Niners, Seahawks, that can really go either way. I'm still upset at the Seahawks, so I think I don't know, one of them might lose for you. Sorry, Glenn.
No apologies. This next question I'm going to take, it's from Wes Varghese, who's our editor. He texted it to me because he has my number, but y'all don't. He needs 2 wide receivers and a flex out of the following: Juju Smith-Schuster, Allen Robinson, Rashard Higgins, Scotty Miller, finally in those questions, and again, Jerry Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb. Are you just sending me your whole lineup, Wes? What's the deal here? All right, so if you need 2 wide receivers, I'm starting Allen Robinson since he is active. Rashard Higgins, we've talked about. I like him a lot. Also a really good value in DFS. I'm not quite comfortable enough to start Juju Smith-Schuster, so that's I'm going to sit him, and then at the flex instead, I'm going to reach for the ceiling. I wish Scotty Miller were healthy, but I still, without Godwin, like his ability, especially his chemistry with Tom Brady on those deep balls. So I think that's the ceiling flex for me. Robinson, Higgins, and Scotty Miller. All right, keep those tweets coming in. Our own Scott Pianowski is still answering questions at the hashtag AskFFL all the way up until kickoff.
All right, Fantasy Face-Off. Liz and I are going to be debating similarly ranked players. We're going to start at the quarterback position. We've got the exciting positions of quarterback and tight end in this one. But let's start off with the quarterback spot here, Liz. I've got Ben Roethlisberger, but you've got Matthew Stafford. Tell me why you like Stafford ahead of Roethlisberger.
Listen, I know that it's difficult to imagine fireworks in a Lions-Colts matchup, although I will say that the point total is higher per Vegas in this matchup than against the Pittsburgh-Baltimore matchup. Here's the deal. Since Kenny Golladay has come back, Matt Stafford looks himself again. He is willing to throw the ball deep, which is not something you can say of Ben Roethlisberger, so I like Stafford by a hair.
Yeah, I think this is a great debate. It's pretty close. I like Roethlisberger because, look, the Ravens and the Steelers are 2 of the only actually legit defenses participating here in 2020. But I think Ben, as I mentioned with Kate Majuk earlier in Fantasy Community, might have an edge because when the teams send blitzes, Roethlisberger's just getting the ball out of his hands so quickly. And if the Ravens decide to play it that way, like I know Ben hasn't thrown the deep ball yet, but Claypool can win deep one-on-one matchups. Johnson can get open on one-on-one matchups. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game actually has a little bit more fireworks in fantasy than we might be anticipating. All right, let's move on to the tight end position. And man, how exciting that I get to lead off in this debate with Trey Burton. Oh yeah, that's right. Did you forget when the Colts took that week off last week that Trey Burton has established himself as the clear tight end 1 on this team? 26 routes last week. And this is a guy that they talked up all over the place in the offseason was Trey Burton. They were excited about him. Frank Reich obviously has all those positive memories from when he was the play caller when they won the Super Bowl, and Trey Burton was playing pretty well even before that memorable play, the Philly special in the Super Bowl. So obviously, like when you could talk about Super Bowls years ago as fantasy analysis for this week, totally great. But no, really, 26 routes run last week, the clear tight end 1 going against the Lions defense that is not very good. But Liz, you like Mike Gesicki with Tua coming into the picture here. Tell me why.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't really like any of these options. I like Trey Burton more before Mo Alley Cox was active for this game. I think he might siphon off a few opportunities for Burton because the game you're talking about didn't have Alley Cox in it. Now, I don't think Alley Cox is going to be a viable option, but when we look at Mike Gesicki, you mentioned Tua Tagovailoa, and as much of a trope as it may be, a young quarterback tends to lean on that tight end position. Let's just hope it's Gesicki and not Adam Shaheen, because as a Bears fan, I can't stand to see another former Bears tight end, Burton and Shaheen, doing work.
Yeah, well, listen, the Bears and tight ends, that's been a great trope here in 2020. So great we can close the segment out on that. I love it. What a fun debate between Burton and Gesicki.
All right, speaking of fun debates, it's time for a little Make Your Pick, and I'm here with the greatest running back of all time, Sweetness, and we are taking your social questions. Let's start with one from Mitch. Mitch is asking, oh my gosh, these glasses, brutal. Can you pick two for me? What a list right here. Devin Singletary, Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael Hasty, Joshua Kelly, or DJ Dallas. I will send this to you, Sweetness. Do you like anything here? You have to
Bruh, for real? I have to answer? Oh, man. I mean, just going through this, I don't like Singletary. It's hard to pick which Pittsburgh wide receiver is going to get off. Hasty or Coleman, Kelly, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm thinking that Chris Carson probably won't play, and if he does, he's limited. So I like DJ Dallas, and then, oh wow, this is kind of nasty, man. I mean, I guess,
yeah.
I can't even bring myself to pick Singletary. Like, I guess Juju, man. Like, I'm expecting like some points to be scored in that Pittsburgh Ravens matchup. So Juju and DJ Dallas, but I'll just keep you in my thoughts and prayers, man.
Yeah, I actually agree with this. I would go with Juju here. Little bit of upside, right? He might get a ton of targets in this one, short range targets for sure. I don't want anything to do with Singletary. And then that second spot, I think I would probably just, the only way I'm starting Dallas is if Carson actually can't go. Otherwise, I would go Hasty.
Yeah.
Next question we've got, I believe this one comes in from Keith. Keith is asking, pretty banged up. Flex, standard league, needs one. It's Josh Kelly again, Nelson Aguilar, LaMichael Pirine, or CeeDee Lamb. Mentioned it earlier with respect to Amari Cooper. I mean, if I can't trust Amari Cooper in this one, I don't think I can trust CeeDee Lamb either. Great player, but I don't want him tied to DiNucci. I'm going to go Nelson Aguilar here. And we don't know exactly what the weather conditions are going to be, but he's coming off a game in which he saw 9 targets. He's been a big play receiver for the Raiders, and both pass defenses in this game, both the Raiders and the Browns, they have been trash all season, allowing over 280 passing yards per week. So I think Aguilar has the best shot here. Do you agree?
Like, Aguilar came that close to being my value play at wide receiver. The only thing that scared me off of Aguilar, it wasn't the matchup, because the Browns, like you said, are terrible against the pass. It's just that they may have some gusty winds. Like, we don't worry about rain, we don't worry about snow, we worry about wind, and there's a potential to have 34, 40 mile per hour gusts there, and that's the thing that scared me off of him. But even dealing with the wind gusts, looking at that other lineup, I want no parts. Like, I usually love running backs in this situation, but I'm not touching Pirine against the Chiefs, so Aguilar.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think I could mess with any Jets this week. All right, keep sending those Twitter questions into us. We're going to kick it now to Liz for Fantasy Damage.
Thank you, Andy. Let's get to some last-minute sleepers who could do some fantasy damage. This week, I am starting with a quarterback. It's Derek Carr. The gentleman just talked about Nelson Aguilar and how he has been productive. Well, Derek Carr has performed admirably. He has completely surpassed expectations. Through 6 games, he has recorded a touchdown to interception ratio of 13-2, and he is managing a true completion percentage of just under 77. That's QB5 for that statistical category. The matchup, obviously great. The Browns are getting flamed. They gave up a bunch of yards and 3 touchdowns to Joe Burrow last week, allowing the 3rd most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks. Projected point total on this one, 51.5. I think Derek Carr could cook and should be considered inside the top 15 players at the position. I also want to talk about a tight end. So Matt and I discussed Gesicki and Burton. That's gross. And Goddard is back. I had prepared to talk about Richard Rodgers, but since Goddard is back, that's all muddied. So let's discuss Albert O. Oh, this kid who converted all 7 of his looks for Denver last week. Tim Patrick's not healthy. Noah Fant, even though he's on the field, is clearly not healthy. That means that Albert O, who, by the way, is a former teammate from Mizzou of Drew Lock, and Drew Lock looks shook all the time, right? So Drew Lock is trying to find comfort, and that comes in the big body, 6'5" and 255 pounds of Albert O, who, by the way, also managed a 4.5 combine 40-yard dash score. So I like Albert O as an absolutely desperation play if you are looking to get through the week and stream. It's time to take our final break here on Fantasy Football Live. We'll get to more of your roster questions when we come back. Just a few minutes left here on Fantasy Football Live. Let's get to some of those last-minute questions at the hashtag AskFFL. This first one comes from Drew. Hello, Drew. Aaron Rodgers or Carson Wentz? That is the first part of this question. Tank, we've been talking about the wind. We don't worry about rain, snow, like you said, but we worry about wind. Are you worried about the wind in Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers enough to sit him in favor of Carson Wentz?
Who's Wentz playing against? Them Cowboys? Yeah, we're going Wentz.
Okay. All right, fair enough. There you go, Carson Wentz. In the same question, Drew is getting a two for here. Le'Veon Bell or DeAndre Swift in that revenge matchup? Andy, you said you wouldn't take a Jet. Will you take a former Jet?
I will take a former Jet facing the Jets, and that is, of course, the key. It's really hard to believe that Le'Veon Bell didn't extract some guarantees about number of touches against the Jets in his second game for the Chiefs. He was basically rotating series with Edwards-Helaire a week ago, so I expect him, obviously, to go off and really put it to him in the second half of this game.
Minty, this next one is coming for you. It is from Mark, and he asks, will the Dolphins cover versus the Rams?
This is hard because it's Tua's first NFL career start. I don't really trust the Dolphins. I know they've been hot lately, but they've had Ryan Fitzpatrick then. The line is suspiciously low, but I think the Rams cover here.
All right, we're going to get to one more. We have just time for this question from Matthew. Allen Robinson or Josh Jacobs? Half-point PPR as your flex. Both games have high wins. I agree. You know what? I am going to lean towards Josh Jacobs for the points that Harmon made earlier. Andy, do you disagree with that, even though Jacobs has been banged up throughout the season?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like Josh Jacobs limps away from almost every play, but he keeps returning. He's the high volume guy here. As much as I like Allen Robinson, I'm always going to go with the full workload, hyper talented running back. So give me Jacobs.
All right, Matt, it's almost kickoff time. So what's buzzing in the chat?
Yeah, JC Long sends in a good question here. Help with the sirens and the fire emojis, the eyes. Love keeping it simple right here before kickoff. Pick 2 in a full PPR. Thanks, guys. Keenan Allen, Kareem Hunt, Jamal Williams. Finally, I get to tell you to sit Jamal Williams. Because, hey, Keenan Allen, I'm not benching him. My shield from earlier in a full PPR. Give me a break. Got to go that direction. Kareem Hunt against the Raiders. We love it. And last thing I want to say, Chase Brooks from the chat says, can Andy please take those glasses off? He's not Rodrigo Blankenship. just want to make that known. Last thing going on in the chat there.
All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. So you can take those glasses off. Andy, thank you for kicking off your NFL Sunday with us. Remember, you can connect with us all week long on the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast. That is our podcast, Mad Bets Daily on Yahoo Sports. And, of course, back here every single Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Good luck to all your fantasy teams in Week 8. We are at the halfway point, and we will see you next Sunday.